everybody, and welcome back to the Girl Hockey Dad podcast, or welcome for the first time. Doesn't really matter. Stoked to have you here regardless. Hope everybody's had a fantastic holiday or is currently having a fantastic holiday, depending on how much time you were lucky enough to have off. And I am just desperate for some hockey right now. And it was like 3 days out of the rink before I realized I do have an addiction. And I'm sure there's a bunch of you out there that are in line with me thinking, holy crap, get me back to the ice now, please now. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're still enjoying the break. Either way, it's all good. So before I jump into this week's discussion topic or the thing that I want to ramble on about, I have to point out that January 1st is the inaugural PWHL game between New York and Toronto at the Mattamy Athletic Center in Toronto. And I will not be there because I was cocky and slow and did not get season tickets, which I am not happy about. Congratulations to everybody that did get tickets. It's amazing. I know it's going to be an incredible day at the rink. I'm sure the PWHL has an amazing day planned and all kinds of events and things that we don't even know about right now. Today's been an incredibly exciting day. Air Canada has announced to be partnering with the PWHL. Just so many incredible things, so many amazing things. I'm so excited to watch that game on TSN or CBC or whatever we end up watching it on. For our U.S. friends, I really hope that there's a streaming situation figured out by the time the game starts on Monday. And then I got to make some decisions on whether or not we try and get into Montreal or Ottawa for a game because I don't know how else to see a game live this year, and it's going to have to happen. It's been a couple of weeks off. Thanks so much for coming back. I want to thank Rachel Flanagan for the interview last week, and we were lucky enough to go and watch the rivalry series and see her assistant coach. Yeah, let's get into it for this week. My topic, the thing that's been rattling around in my head for a few weeks now, and I'm sure if you're a parent or a player in minor hockey, in Ontario, in Canada, in the States, I can't attest to this topic for the States, but I know Ontario and I know a little bit about Canada. But the thing that I want to talk about, the thing that I'm going to kind of rattle on about is female coaches, women in coaching in general, and why it seems so difficult to convince women to coach or to stay in coaching. I think as I go on here, it's going to become abundantly clear. And I really do look forward to having some conversations. There is one coach in specific that I want to talk to about this because it was an eye-opening experience for me to experience a female head coach after 7 years of male head coaches in minor hockey. Well, where my thought process starts with this is a couple of comments that Rachel actually made in that last episode. And as I start rambling on about this, I start to realize it could be a very sensitive topic, but that's not why I'm talking about this. I want to start this conversation more publicly, and I want to get feedback, and I want the people who are involved or who could be involved to engage in discussion. I want to see where people land on this. I want to see where the women who could be coaching, why they aren't gravitating to it. Why are we not seeing females finish their college play and then jumping into coaching? I can start this conversation off so quickly and accurately, I think, by saying, in my mind, the reason off the top is men just jump into this and take control of their kids' hockey playing career early on. And I think it's a hard cycle to break depending on what level you play at and depending the center you play in and how many people volunteer. And we all know how hard it is to get people to volunteer in minor hockey. That's not a surprise. You'll see the same handful of people year over year constantly coming back and volunteering their time or wanting to be involved, and for a myriad of reasons, positive, negative, whatever. I'm not getting into that. That's not the topic. What I want to explore is this idea that we can't get women to coach. I shouldn't say we can't get women to coach. I mean, right now in Ontario, there are more head coaches more female head coaches showing up in tier one positions than I have ever seen. And it makes me incredibly excited because I'm tired of my daughters being coached by dudes. Not every male coach on the planet is in tune with what it takes to coach a female or how to handle the emotions on and off the ice of a bunch of teenagers or preteens, and then what to do when they aren't focused, or the next stages of life and everything else that we sort of touched on in previous conversations. I've experienced. I'm one of those. I'm one of those parents who has now been in multiple centers with their kids, and I've gone from the coaches that never change and they just go on through the system, and that's another conversation altogether. And now I've gone to another center and come back and then had the head coach be female. And it took me back to a conversation that I had a few years prior where a teammate that my one daughter had went to another center, and I was talking to the mom, and she was just over the moon about this female coach. I didn't know the person. I'd never heard of her. I hadn't seen anything she'd done. And the funniest thing looking back was her initial comments about this head coach had nothing to do with her hockey acumen or the games they were winning or any of that. Her first approach or her first comments to me were, she's just created this incredible atmosphere for the girls and they're just having so much fun. And there was a group of players on that team who had come from centers that struggled and maybe didn't have the greatest seasons before, and we're in that space of like, I'm sick and tired of losing and this and that and the other thing. And the funniest part is they didn't have an incredible season. The story I was getting back in that season wasn't about the wins and loss columns. It was completely about the experience that the players were having. And I remember at that time having the like, oh yeah, okay, it's all about the experience. Well, maybe you guys should try and stack some wins and get back to me then and tell me how great a coach she is. Of course, I'm one of those parents. I'm that dad who's not in tune with what it is that they're actually benefiting from. So fast forward 3 years, that same coach is now coaching my daughter. I'm now experiencing it firsthand where she has brought in a staff, her own staff. Now she's got a couple of males on the staff that are family, so that's she's controlling that situation. So I don't see anything wrong with it. She's brought people in that she knows she can trust and knows, and they know her. So I don't think it's a negative thing. Right away is asking questions of the parents. What is it that you see, and what is your feedback? And the communication was so much better, and all of the things that I'm sure as a parent in minor hockey, you're going to be able to say there are times when you wish there was better communication, there was a more open 360 dialogue with the coaching staff. Not that as a parent, we really should be commenting on the coaching aspect of it, but we want to be able to provide feedback and not feel like we're taking shots at the coach or anything like that. So this was a new experience for us with a female head coach who really cared, like was really, really into every aspect, the experiential side of it for the players, the hockey side of it, the development side of it, all the aspects of what it is that's amazing about hockey. This coach is completely in tune with. And I'm not saying that the male coaches that we've had in the past haven't been that way, but it just feels different. This feels like that coach is bonding with those players and understands the dynamics, the different dynamics that come in with female hockey players. This isn't new. This isn't unique. You have OUA, NCAA players that have played for women, who have played for men, and I'm sure could say that they have a very different experience depending on who their head coach is and depending on if it's a male or a female. The point of saying all of that, or where I was going with all of that, is, okay, now I have experienced the female head coach, and I can very earnestly say I like it. I feel that I prefer it. I'm not saying that there's not a place for male coaches. That's not it at all. At the end of the day, we are only as good as the amount of people that step up to do these jobs. And we're not we're not flooded with people right now. I hope that's getting better, and I hope it does get better over time. There's always a ton of people that are willing to push pucks and help out and do all of that, but there's not a ton of people that are willing to take on that head coach role, and it is a ton of work. I've done it at a house league level. I've said that before. Champion house league coach, no big deal. Not at a tier one, we all know the expectations change and the workload changes for the coach and all these things. And so, no, I haven't experienced that, but I get the general idea of the amount of work that it takes. So when you see a coach step up or you see a parent step up and willing to do this, especially a non-parent, and that's the other part of this conversation, is when you get a non-parent willing to put their time in to develop your kids, to be at the rink, to put practice plans together, to book travel, to take time off work, to do all of the things that it requires to be a head coach, you hold on to them. And I think in women's hockey, and I'm sure this is in boys hockey as well too, but like when you have somebody who does connect and is willing to do it, sometimes you're willing to just be like, well, they're not doing a terrible job, so you just kind of let them go with it. The other part of this is the association side, and that's, what are we doing to actually recruit new coaches? How much are the associations doing to recruit new coaches? I don't know what your association's like, and I would love to have people reach out and tell me how their associations do this. But 9 times out of 10, I've seen the one tweet or the one thing goes up on Instagram, or you get that email that's like, coaching applications are now being accepted. And I don't know how many times I've heard this where it's like, well, so-and-so is just going to get it again anyway, so why would I even bother putting my name in? Or there's some sort of lack of communication and people don't bother putting their hands up, and for whatever reasons. There's a ton of reasons, I'm sure. But what work are the associations doing, going to the universities, going to the high schools, going to wherever they can to recruit past players, past women players that would want to get into the coaching life, that coach life, and start to give back? I mean, you see it, for sure you see it, and I'm pushing my own kids to try and get more into volunteering now, but it takes a certain kind of person that actually wants to be a coach. I understand that. Not every player wants to be a coach, but you can't tell me that there's not a handful that do. So what is it? What are the reasons why they're not doing it? I'll pause and I'll let everybody say it. Like if I count to 3 and you all say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3, parents, right? I think it's us. I think it's all of the drama that comes along with coaching and the pressure that we put on those coaches. And I think if you're a female player and you're growing up in it and you're watching it happen to your own coach, or you're right next to it, you're thinking, yeah, no thanks. Like, I'm not going to put my hand up for that. And that's not everybody's experience, of course. But I think by and large it probably is. Watching parents scream at refs and scream at coaches and complain about ice time and all of the things that we do, and all the things we engage in, pushes people away from it. It's not just a one-step thing, I'm sure of it. It's not just like, okay, if we just go and reach out and we ask more females to get involved, if we ask more OUA players and grade 12s and everybody else and try and bring them in and be like, hey, you know what? You should really do this. I don't think it's just that. It's a change in conversation. I mean, there was this thought or this conversation I had with somebody a few years ago that was like, why don't we make it mandatory that the major U18s, so in your final year or your second to final year, you have to do a term as an assistant coach or as an on-ice helper or whatever. You have to pick a team that you're not affiliated with. That's tough. I understand that's tough to say you have to do it, to make it mandatory. But how else are we supposed to start getting people involved? I mean, you could, as an association, approach your U18s and be like, hey, we're going to do a coaches clinic. And what we would love to do is see you girls get involved with the U9s or the U8s or whatever. Get that first shift experience, get them out there and see if they enjoy it. Maybe they'll find that they really do, and that starts that journey. Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll assistant coach for the U9, or maybe I'll assistant coach for U11. And then, you know what? A few years on, maybe I will head coach. Maybe I'll get into this. This isn't the conversation about whether we should have paid coaches or any of that stuff. I still believe and firmly do, and we'll get into that the tier 1 coaching positions should probably be paid. There are players out there right now. Just look at the PWHL. How many players did not make rosters? Those are brilliant hockey minds that are phenomenal hockey players that you could talk to and engage in your associations and be like, hey, Let's get you head coaching one of these teams, and we'll pay you a little bit of money to make sure you're covered. This is just getting added to the budget, and I think people would be willing to pay for it. Why aren't we getting out there now and having these conversations? We know that there's a bunch of players out there, and we know that every year a bunch of players graduate from university and they move on to their next thing, and they're not coming back in. A very, very small handful are. I've had these conversations with women who are playing U22 right now. Hey, you should really be thinking about head coaching. I don't really think so. Or there's all kinds of different reasons, and generally speaking, the reasons that come back aren't time. It's not money. It's nothing. It's about the other stuff. I'd really rather not deal with all the nonsense and all the drama. That's something that's got to change. That's a culture that we have to change. That has no place in minor hockey. And I'm talking to myself as I say it. The days of the crazy parents has to calm down. Like, be excited. It's a fantastic environment. It's so much fun. It's so exciting. But we're pushing females away from coaching. We're pushing people through the system. These girls are playing their way through U9, all the way through university, and then they're turning their backs on hockey. Yes, not every single one of them turns their back as soon as they're done playing hockey, but show me the majority, I'm sure they aren't. They're not coming back. I think we can do better than that. Parents opening up a conversation with their daughters about, hey, would you ever consider coaching when you're done playing? Early on having that conversation, and then looking into volunteering and maybe looking into coaching courses and this and that. I do believe firmly that it's on the associations to start to bring this up, to have clinics, to organize sessions for these players to engage in. I think if you were to say, hey, every U18 in the association, we're going to run this coaching clinic. We'd love to see you guys get involved. You don't think it's going to be full? I'm sure it is. If it's not just from the kids, you know the parents are going to be like, oh, heck yeah, let's go. And then talk to them about the fact that it can help their volunteer hours. I mean, I don't know if this is the thing in the States, but here in Ontario anyways, most areas you have to do 48 volunteer hours in high school. And what better way than volunteering at a rink? Anyways, this is a topic that I think I want to revisit. I would love to do a multi-part session where I have female coaches, maybe that are done coaching, some that have started coaching, and females that are going to get into coaching. I'd love to have a multi-conversation type situation and get everybody involved in this. This is going to benefit everyone. I put my hand up years ago and said, I will be the first one to be a non-parent coach the minute my kids are done playing. And I can't wait to get heckled for that. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. I do want to get some engagement on this one. So if you want to send me an email, jump on Instagram or whatever, please take part in the conversation and we will revisit this. And those friends of mine who are coaches, I want to hear from you. I want to talk about this more. I want maybe this to be the thing that we start to have an impact in girls hockey, is to start to engage more female coaches. Why not? Thanks so much, everybody, for coming back around again. This is getting more and more fun for me. I really am enjoying the interaction. Some of you fine folks have been sending me emails and DMs and in support of what I'm doing here. This is for fun, for sure. And if I can have any impact in women's hockey and minor hockey, that'd be fantastic. So this topic this week is something that I know, like I said, I want to come back to, and we will for sure. I would ask if anybody has anything they want to talk about or want me to get into, please send me a message on Instagram. Please don't hesitate to send me an email. I'm noticing more and more that we have a lot of listeners on Apple Music, which is fantastic. I'm still blown away that there are as many people out there listening as there are. Week over week, again, going to try and get this thing better, get my ship a little bit tighter, and get the frequency a little bit more frequent and a little bit more scheduled. But this week, a bit of a cold going on, so hopefully I don't sound terrible. You know what? There's a lot of hockey happening in the next few months. A lot of parents out there struggling with what's coming next season. I'm speaking to myself right now. Everybody try and live in the moment. Tryouts will happen. Teams will be made. It is what it is. And I will see you around the rink.